Good evening, good evening. Look at these lovely names coming in to our room. I can see there's some USA community members in here. Hello, all of you. Too many to mention, but so lovely to see you. You should be able to say hi in the chat this evening. This is our first, and I think perhaps because of the sheer number of attendees tonight, the first of many supplement surgeries. It's something that we've been wanting to do for a long time as a brand because I think there's so much swirliness out there in the midlife health space, particularly at the moment in all of the markets that we have the privilege to operate in. And we've been getting more and more questions into our health concierge team, more and more questions into the one-to-one consultations that some of you may have had with Charlotte. And we just thought this was a really lovely opportunity to grab a cup of tea, to have a very relaxed conversation with nutritionist in residence, the wonderful Charlotte Hunter. What I found as I've navigated midlife, you get hungrier for more information. You may have found your foundation layer, and I really hope that MPOWDER is a part of that for many of you. But I think as we start learning more about our biochemistry, it almost opens up more questions. Please do ask those questions this evening. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. This session is being recorded because we had a huge number of people apply to attend this evening. We've had to cap the numbers. So this will be circulated to those people that weren't able to join us live. So that means if you've got anything that you put into the chat that you want to ask as a question, and it's a bit sensitive and you want me to ask it anonymously on your behalf, just send it to host and panelists. You can toggle across the chat to choose to do that. If you're happy for me to reference your name, I absolutely will do, because I love to get to know all of you in the community. So if that's comfortable for you as well, you can make your question in the chat to everybody, and that means everyone will see it and everyone will know that we're talking and answering a question that you've posed. But as we're waiting for a few more attendees to join us, I'm going to give them another minute. What I'd love, if you're comfortable to, is for you to just put into the chat your hellos, where you're joining us from today, because we have such an international community now. But also, I have a question for you, because I have many answers on this one, but I would love to know what the most outrageous promise you've seen as a menopausal woman. I want to know all of the overclaims, all of the overpromises that you've seen across social media. There's so much at the moment. So please do share with the group. And I will also share a few of my favourites. Charlotte, I'm sure you have a few favourites that have probably crossed your feed in recent months as well.
Yeah, you usually leave me a bit speechless. It isn't very often.
Whilst you guys are warming up, hello. Oh, hello, Noelle from California. So now I just have life envy. But thank you so much for joining us this evening. My favourite, actually, of all of the ones I've been being served recently is the one that promises to help me, excuse the use of language, but this is literally what it says on the ad, has offered to help me poo out back fat with their supplement, which I didn't even know was possible. Yes.
It's
amazing.
The one that keeps popping up in my feed it's some kind of skin balm or tallow-based balm, something like that. And there's a before and after photo. And one is really wrinkly woman, and then this goddess. And somehow led to believe that they're actually the same person.
Yeah.
Wrinkles gone overnight.
I know. Phenomenal. Hello, Amber in London. Lovely to see you. I'm so glad you're joining us this evening. Yeah, I know. And it is, on a serious note, really frustrating, because we spend a lot of money as women in midlife because we're often not served and supported in the way we need to be. So it makes me laugh and cross in equal measure. There's one in here. Yes, exactly. If you use their products and heal your gut, you will have perfect skin forever. Yes. Because life doesn't happen to us in midlife either, does it? It's that other thing that you're going to have a silver bullet and nothing is going to interrupt that gut microbiota or your sense of equilibrium. Oh, hello, Lisa. Yes, where do I start on the promises? I can't pick one. There's too many. Yes, this is very true. There are so many out there. And I think also what's been really interesting for me is we've been obviously a community now for 5 years in the UK. So when we were first talking to people about midlife, it really was the very beginning of the word perimenopause being in media. I stumbled into perimenopause and became incredibly unwell because I hadn't even heard of it as a life stage, and it wasn't even something that doctors referenced. I remember standing and looking at a shelf that basically seemed to be targeting women over 100, and I was suddenly in that category. And it felt like, I've often said, almost like an end of life category. And now I feel like there's so many products. I don't know what's worse. I don't know if it's worse hitting menopause at this point or 10 years ago, as I did, where there was nothing, or whether it's worse to have almost too much noise, too much promise, too much in terms of options. I don't know how you guys feel about that? Maybe I was better off learning it piecemeal, bit by bit, rather than being presented with this kind of blueprint for midlife that's impossible to achieve unless you live on an island with a personal trainer and a nutritionist. It's really hard. But anyway, I'm going to get on to some of the questions that have come in. Again, to all of you here this evening, please do feel free to put questions into the chat for Charlotte as we pick her brains. The only other safety thing as we head into the question set for you guys to be aware of is obviously, please make sure that when you're asking a question and we're responding, that you understand that we're not medical practitioners and we obviously don't know your personal context, so we're not able to recommend explicitly for you. We can talk in general terms, and Charlotte is a wealth of knowledge, but please do bear that in mind. If you've been prescribed medication or have an underlying health condition, that's particularly important to be aware of. So the first question we had in advance of this evening, which I think is one we see quite a lot with our health concierge team, is how do I know if I'm in perimenopause or if it's just stress? Charlotte, can you talk to us a little bit about that, how you assess?
I think it's really difficult. I really do. And I don't have an absolute definitive answer either. I think, if I rewind to when I first started working in the menopause space as a nutritionist, it was very prescriptive on paper. You were in perimenopause if you were 3 months before your last menstrual period, or you were 3 years, or there was this sliding scale that you had to fit within. And I think now the conversation's opened up massively. And I don't think there really are any rules on perimenopause. And I think it's quite difficult as well, because when you're menopausal or postmenopausal, that's the day of your last period. But then you don't know that until you've gone 12 months without a period. And then guess what? You could suddenly have one and then you're back again. So it's quite difficult to know when you're actually in it. It's more of a retrospective acknowledgement of what's been happening with your hormones. But I think I'd say to anyone that if anything's changing, whatever that change might be, that's a possible clue. And I think also thinking about when your mum went through menopause, if you've got a sister, if your grandma is able to talk about it, to get an idea about the other women in your family and their experience. Not to say that you're going to be exactly the same, but it might give you some clues. But I think what it does tell us is that in our 30s and 40s, we need to be aware of our own bodies. So know what's normal for us and know what changes that. And I think the stress angle, again, it's really difficult because I can think of so many clients that I've worked with who've come to me saying, I'm in perimenopause. And then we've worked together and they maybe are in perimenopause, but actually the stress picture was almost trumping the perimenopause symptoms. That makes sense.
I think that's really valuable. I know when I speak to some of the medical practitioners in our community, they will talk about external stresses obviously having a massive impact on our hormones as well. If life is stressful, you're very likely to experience symptoms that could manifest themselves very perimenopause. In a weird way, the treatment is the same, isn't it? It's if your hormones are disrupted. We started as a brand in the pandemic, and I remember doing our first ever product impact study with a wonderful group of women who were trialing perimenopause to track its efficacy, which is what we always do. And we could see their symptoms go higher and become more troublesome each time there was a piece of news that really worried us as a kind of collective. We were going through really a massive kind of experience as society, weren't we? And we saw all of these symptoms heighten in tandem as the news came out and then lessen as people adapted to it. So that for me was a real-time lesson on how external stress can impact our symptoms. And actually younger women at the time would manifest themselves, like you say, Charlotte, as perimenopausal. And then actually as life returned to some form of normality or became the new normal, they would actually often get a period in a more regular cycle again. And there was nothing that was wrong in the protocols that we were discussing with them. They were the same because you're looking to get that hormone balance in perimenopause and shave off the sort of the peaks and troughs as much as possible.
You could technically be in perimenopause 10 years prior to your last period. And I think, as you said, you may be having those symptoms of anxiety or migraines or feeling very up and down or periods going all over the place. And they're possible signs. And it may be that you're thinking, a lot of ladies I speak to say, well, I don't really feel like it's bad enough to do anything about it, which is I don't know, I think that's what a lot of us tell ourselves. We said, oh, is it bad enough? If not quite sure whether you're there yet or what you should be doing. And I think, as you said, the nutritional and lifestyle application is the same. You're still going to support your stress response and your
Yeah.
blood sugar and some dietary basics, other things in your lifestyle that could be going on.
It's never too early. And I think that whole thing as well of, is it bad enough? And I think that's such a thing that we need to stop ourselves from feeling as women, because we so often just push on food. Like you say, if you notice changes and you're not feeling good, yes, it's bad enough for you to seek support. You absolutely have earned that. We all do it, don't we, as women? You know, I'm okay, my leg's not falling off, but your quality of life is impacted. And actually, I think the more we learn about menopause and our symptoms, the more we know that how we treat ourselves now really does have an impact on our health span. So for me, that's become, the more we've learned about menopause, the more important it is to take action. I've got another really big one for you. This is another one we've had in, which goes right down into the weeds, Charlotte. What happens to our mineral reserves when we are stressed? And this was actually a response to one of the posts we did the other week about magnesium. So I think that it was particularly looking to understand the link between supplementing with magnesium when you're sometimes going through periods of anxiety or stress.
So your stress response, which involves your adrenal glands, which are tiny little glands that sit on top of your kidneys that pump all those hormones out that we need for our flight or fight response. So if you're constantly stressed, this is really oversimplification. If you're really stressed, your endocrine system is on overdrive, and you're essentially just hoovering up all those minerals, and you need to just replenish them. So that's really simplistic. So things like sodium, sometimes when people are really stressed or have got headaches or feel awful, sometimes they feel better with a little bit extra salt. They're burning through those minerals. But I think the other thing is with magnesium is that magnesium is supportive for something like 600 or more different reactions in the body. And some of those reactions are related to our nervous system and things like our neurotransmitters, which are the chemicals in our brain, and various processes that just keep things ticking over. So I suppose the easiest way to think about it is that it's like the engine in your car. If you've got your accelerator on, you're going to wear things out. You're going to use more oil, more water, more fluid, more everything, more petrol. So you need to keep replenishing those stores.
Really good answer. Thank you. Really helpful. And then this is a great one because we throw the word around all the time. Is what is inflammation anyway? And why do I need to pay more attention to it in midlife?
Brilliant. So when we think of inflammation, we think of a sprained ankle, you burn yourself on a panhandle or fall over and bash something. That is that classic inflammation where the injured part of your body is just firing off all of its protective mechanisms and repair and all of those things. And it's part of the healing process. So it's a good thing to get you better almost.
Yeah.
It's a normal process that happens, but it's acute and it happens, and then hopefully things will calm down again. This low grade inflammation we talk about is just all that, I suppose the easiest way to describe it in layman's terms is all that wear and tear in the background. So eating badly, being exposed to things that create more stress in the body, smoking, drinking, environmental stuff that we surround ourselves, things that are putting our systems under pressure. And it can also happen in our metabolism as well. So if we're not eating a very healthy diet. So it's this low grade level of inflammation. And that's the damaging, really long-term damaging inflammation, because it's just at that low grade floating around in the background.
And why? Because I know that menopause in medical terms is seen as an inflammatory state. How does that low grade inflammation that maybe our body has managed for a period of time suddenly become a problem when we hit midlife? Is it that compound of menopause in itself is inflammatory, and then you've got all of these other maybe habits and inputs that your body coped with, and suddenly you can't get away with it?
I suppose the reality check that we don't really talking about is as we go through menopause, where our bodies are just naturally getting older, there's something called inflammaging. So when you get older, you're more susceptible to inflammation because your immune system isn't as strong. Yes, there's menopause, but yes, there's aging. And I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. They overlap, don't they?
Yeah.
So again, it's almost a warning sign to keep looking after your body.
Yeah, and there's a beautiful comment here in the chat just talking about perimenopause and menopause as an evolution to allow women to finally start to put themselves first, or at least equal as to all the people around them that they're always taken care of. So I'm not looking to turn the clock back to be like I was before. Instead, I want to maximize support for my body, for where I'm headed next, emotionally and mentally. How do your supplements support these goals? I know this is an esoteric question. It's a beautiful question. And I totally agree with that kind of philosophy. I was reflecting on it in our newsletter last week because I was thinking about, there's a beautiful book called What You're Looking For Is in the Library. It's a Japanese book, and I can share it in our chat afterwards if anyone's interested in the stuff I read in bed at night. But it's a series of fictional stories about people going into the library and the librarian almost having Yoda-like skills and prescribing a book to help someone with what they don't really know that they need. And there's a story in the book about an aging guy that's moving into his retirement years and has always worked in a biscuit factory. And she uses the analogy of the last two biscuits in the tin actually being the ones that you really are excited for and treasure because they're the last two biscuits in the tin. And yet when we look at our lifespan, if we're not careful, we look at our part two almost as not as valuable as part one, and we're always looking to move backwards. But if you could view part two as the last biscuits in the tin, they're even more precious. So I thought that was really beautiful. Anyway, that's me being even more esoteric. In terms of that as a question around optimizing our health and kind of thinking about health span, can you talk a little bit about the foundational blends, Charlotte, and I guess maybe pulling out a few of the botanicals in our blends that can really help us with that kind of balancing of hormones and optimizing of our health as we move into part two?
I think it fits perfectly with the question, doesn't it? Because I think the MPOWDER blends really are about filling those gaps and providing a foundation. It's not about really high doses. The philosophy that you see in a lot of supplements is that more is more and more is better. But actually, we don't need more and more. We just need to make sure that we're actually allowing ourselves to create that lovely foundation. And if you need some little extras, then you can. That's great. But it's really, I think, and the reason I love them is they're very gentle. And it is the blend of some gorgeous botanicals in there. Ashwagandha, that's a really well-known one, and just about every woman I know loves ashwagandha. It's very balancing. Lemon balm,
I love because it's such a humble herb and it's got so much science behind it as well. And I think to your point around what I love about ashwagandha and that particular ingredient as an adaptogen is its ability. And I know we should know this because it's called literally an adaptogen, but it does so much. It adapts so well. So it's that whole thing of, like you say, balancing, but also its ability to help with things like libido, with sleep, with cognitive function and focus. That kind of blows my mind when I look at the plant kingdom sometimes, and the fact that they can, these plants, because of the compounds and the fact they're whole, they can do so much in the way that I love vitamins and minerals as well. But we so often select our health kind of stack in these kind of individual silos. And I think what I've learned from working with Dr. Martins on these formulations and listening to you talk to them as a nutritionist as well is not to underestimate the power of herbal synergy. That's the other thing perhaps that the foundational blends bring that maybe you wouldn't find if you were just going to get your ashwagandha on its own or your red clover on its own. I always use red clover as an example because that's in our Menopause, but it's blended with a prebiotic because actually without that prebiotic, we can't absorb it as well. So I find that side of the foundational support that we give as we age really interesting because I also believe more is more. And I remember standing in the supplement aisle and going, 4,000% must be better than 100%. Or looking at probiotics, like how many strains of bacteria, I must get as many as possible. And actually, that's not the way that the botanical kingdom works.
no, they're very gentle. And I
Mm,
keep saying that we need to be gentle on our systems as well, because as you progress through perimenopause and into menopause, things like our digestive capacity can change, the microbial balance in our gut changes, our resilience changes, our stress response changes, all of it's changing, it's evolving, I think. And it's about working with those changes rather than against them, thinking, I need to take more, I need to fix it, I need to fix this. It's almost the pill for an ill, where you take one supplement to fix that particular problem. But I think the outcome is so much better if you're using these synergistic ingredients together. Another ingredient I absolutely love is maca.
yeah, yeah.
But I think warning, don't go out to your health food shop and buy a bag of maca
Mm,
because you don't really know what you're getting.
yeah,
And some strains or types of maca can do the absolute opposite of what you want.
yeah, yeah.
So I think with MPOWDER, you're getting the quality ingredient that you won't necessarily get if you just go off and find a random maca.
Going back to ashwagandha, obviously we only work with KSM 66 because it's the root. And there's been quite a lot of stuff within the industry around this concern that because it's become so popular, people look, and we're looking to, we don't spend on ourselves as women because we're always worrying about everyone else. So if we can find a cheaper source, why not? And no one teaches us the difference between all of these things. And ashwagandha, different parts of the plant, are often used in herbal supplements because they're cheaper, but they're not necessarily good for us. And sometimes they can be quite dangerous. And I think the challenge for us as well is quite often the back of the supplement pack doesn't give you the information in that kind of level of detail. So I think, again, to your point more generally about looking after us as we transition into our later years, the other really important thing is when you're looking at supplements, whoever that company is, look for the science pages on the website, do a little bit of due diligence yourself. I know that's effort, but it is really important in terms of what we put into our bodies. And to your point, Charlotte, as well, as we get older, we do become more sensitive. And I think it's really important just to validate. And if a company isn't able to share that kind of information with you, they may not be the right company to place your trust and your hard-earned money with. It is my view as a kind of cynical consumer in the space.
I just add to that because this is a conversation that came up earlier with a group of colleagues of mine, and they were talking about a particular supplement that's been popping up in the media, and I said, so what do you think about it? And we then went down lots of rabbit holes and then started talking about companies that say we have 100 clinical trials to back this up.
Yeah.
What they're really saying is that they've found 100 trials or research papers on PubMed that happen to mention one of their ingredients individually. And what they do is they count them all up and say, well, that's clinical research. And nutritional research is incredibly difficult because there are so many variables to control.
Yeah. And I think as a researcher myself, it makes me really cross because it's that marketing speak, isn't it? And we're very careful not to talk to trials as a business. We've done product impact studies, and to me, that's a really clear distinction. A trial is often incredibly expensive, incredibly long term, and it has to be independent to you as a business in order for it to be really a gold standard trial. We run product impact studies, which are really valid in that we work with our community, they track their symptoms with us, we formulate and refine based on their feedback. But we're really honest about that process. And although I have a research background and Dr. Martins grew up in the pharmaceutical industry, so we run our impact studies like trials, we're really robust in the way we do it, we would never call it a trial. And I think that's really important. And to your point, Charlotte, as well, when we share information on our science pages, we point out to the research papers where there are potential, but they are relevant trials. So I think that's the other thing that really frustrates me is they'll go 100 clinical trials, you'll realize they've been undertaken on, I don't know, men in their 70s. So yes, there may be some research pointing to something, but it's not even done on females. So I think that's the other big watch out as well.
Animals.
Yes. Okay, so I've got one more question in here. If there's anything else that you guys want to ask, please do put it into the chat. But I'm going to ask one more, which is actually the role of supplements, because I think we obviously always point to the value of really looking at your nutrition and what you're putting on your plate. And supplements are then there to supplement. And they aren't a silver bullet, but they can be incredibly valuable, I think, if they're good. So can you talk to me about the role of supplements in supporting our bodies? And you've spoken a little bit about the botanicals, but what else would you suggest if people were looking to explore good foundations? What other vitamins, minerals, botanicals would you say should be considered?
As nutritionist, obviously I'm completely biased because my focus is really food first. If you can fix your diet, make sure you've got a really varied diet, and then use supplements to back that up, really. I think the key ones, especially this time of year, are vitamin D. But really it's about your A, Ds, Es, the usual suspects, vitamin B6, B12 in particular. We've talked about magnesium, ingredients like, I feel it's like a little test now. I feel like I'm on little exam conditions.
You are. This is a test.
Selenium. That's
Selenium.
That's in your formulas. Unless you're eating a few Brazil nuts every day, it's really difficult to get selenium in your diet. So it's so important for so many things, our metabolism, our thyroid function. I think it's been sensible. And I think similar to what you were saying about more is better, the number of ingredients in a supplement isn't always a good guide. There are some menopause products out there where you look at the back of the list and there's just loads and loads and loads of ingredients, and you have to take, I don't know, 12 capsules a day, and there just can't be enough of the stuff label to actually have any therapeutic benefit. So you're much better having something like MPOWDER, which has got all the main building blocks that you need, like the vitamins I've mentioned, some of the minerals, magnesium, B vitamins, and then combining that with the botanicals.
Yeah.
But it's a sensible number of botanicals. It's not just, we're going to put it in there anyway, because what we've done is we've investigated every single menopause product on the market, and we're going to put every single thing that we've come across into our product to make our product the best.
Yes. And I get really concerned actually to your point about being gentle. I think I've talked about this before, but some of the botanicals that we see in other menopause products shouldn't be taken long term. I think that is something that we are really careful about in the way that Dr. Martens has formulated our blends, is they are gentle and they are there for that long journey of perimenopause. To your point, Charlotte, it can last 10, 12 years. Postmenopause is effectively the rest of our lives. We want those foundational powders to feel nourishing, but also to be safe for long-term use. So that's the other watch out. Black cohosh is probably the biggest offender in terms of that kind of warning not really being present on, or needing to be present on pack. But we know how hard that can be on the liver if it's taken over a long period of time without a professional like Charlotte or Dr. Martens advising you. So just being a little bit careful and recognizing that when nature is used properly, it can pack a really powerful punch. We do need to be mindful of what we're taking and for how long as well. And that's the other reason why we are very gentle in our approach. We assume that we are going to start layering up because our community is there to support you in understanding nutrition, understanding all of the other modalities that have science behind them, but also that the foundational powders themselves are there for long-term use. I'm conscious of everyone's time. Thank you to all of you that have joined this evening. Are there any other questions in the chat that I've not answered? Oh, yes. There's one in here, which is a lovely one as well. I'll just read it out to you, Charlotte. I've been trying to get to grips with the perimenopause for more than 3 years now. Yeah, I feel your pain. And I haven't found anything more suitable than mood food. I am trying Peri Boost again as I didn't get on with it the first time. I think the point that is being made here is just how tricky it can be to stack everything on. And actually, yeah, my reflection would be, and Charlotte, please jump in here, if you're taking mood food and Peri Boost, it'd be worth you having a one-to-one consultation, which you absolutely can do via our free service, just to look at what else you may be missing, because it's quite a complete protocol, actually. There may be other supplements you feel you need, but you may also be able to retire some of them. And I know we get so much information. Sometimes we do feel that we need to be taking all of these things. I think one of the biggest examples that we see with Peri Boost particularly is we have Dracobel New, which is a painted extract of Moldavian dragonhead in that particular formula, which is stimulating of collagen production. And quite a lot of females in our community have stopped taking collagen because they found that the Bel New really helps their skin and they no longer need that particular supplement in their regime. So it might be either that you just need a conversation just to talk through what you're taking at the moment so it doesn't feel overwhelming, and also maybe what else you can be doing in terms of the food you're putting on your plate. So for anyone listening tonight, let's ensure that you are making use of our free services as well. Yes, and as Eva says, none of us are experts in this, right? So you start worrying that you might be over supplementing or you're not using the right combination of things. I completely understand. I still feel the same, having had the privilege of listening to the experts in our community for 5 years. I still don't quite know what I'm doing, whether I'm doing it. So I do make an appointment, have a private consultation with Charlotte. We can make sure that we share details and links in the follow-up to this for everyone that's here tonight as well. Just if you want to have we literally just go through, we just rifle through your drawers. We just go through what you're doing at the moment, and then we can have a perspective with you. If that's helpful, please do take us up on that. And I think
to add to that, Rebecca, I think if you're using Peri Boost or Meno Boost and you combine it with any of the mood food or the gut instinct, taking those together, you're not going to over supplement.
Yes.
I think that's really important to point out. And if you are taking other things alongside, I think that's specifically where I could help you just to figure out, because some things you might want to take in addition. Yeah. There may be things that aren't in the foundation, in the level that you need for the symptoms that you have or the health issues you have or any of those things. And obviously, as Rebecca said, we're not giving specific health advice. And also, I think when we talk about supplements in this quite general sense, it sometimes is quite difficult to be specific, isn't it? Because we're not talking about one individual person, we're trying to talk about it as a whole. But it is a really good point, because I think a lot of people, consumers, they're not experts. And it's gone full circle here, but there's so much information online and it is so confusing.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes I do genuinely feel sorry for people because you don't know which is the right option to take. But I think hopefully tonight we've given some pointers on what makes a good supplement and things to look out for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's one reflection here that is, I think, a really important one to share. So I hope that the person who posted it doesn't mind me doing it, because I think it's a really good point. And it's something we see a lot in our community, is the point that obviously our foundational powders can act as that foundation layer that we can then look at layering up with nutrition and all of the other things that we've discussed this evening. But we have had this said to us before, and I think it's in part due to the inclusion of bitters, but also in the foundational powders, Peri Boost, there's a decent chunk of plant-based protein, 7 grams of protein from pea, and good fibrous content in both blends, that people find that their desire to seek nourishing food over craving sugary things changes over time. And that we've seen that quite a lot, because I think there's a functional taste that you have to get used to with MPOWDER, because we're proudly flavor mask free, we're proudly UPF free, we don't put artificial sweeteners in there, because our job is to nourish you. And I think what's lovely is that what we find with people who persist with the blends over the long term is it can actually change the way that they eat and change what they choose to eat as well, which is fascinating. So although supplement, in some ways they can influence, which is the point that was being made in that chat just now, they can influence the way that we choose our foods, because I guess we're balancing our blood sugar, Charlotte, as well as repairing our gut microbiome. So that craving for the sugar fix starts to be easier to manage. Our ghrelin gets back in line and starts behaving itself, so we can feel satisfied. Whereas often, if our gut microbiota is out of whack, we don't know when we're full. We don't know what our body really needs, because it's constantly wanting those quick fixes. And there's another comment here in the chat just saying, noticing how much worse you feel with junkier food and when you feel better from supplementing. I totally agree. It's almost like you go back into those habits maybe without even thinking sometimes, and then you really do see the impact it has. I remember having the same response when I was first working with Dr. Martens with sugar, because I was working with Peri Boost, and it was really early formulations and it was very bitter in taste, and I stuck with it. And I was also implementing a number of protocols with her in my own journey back to getting well again. And I remember I feel like a confession here, but I used to drink a lot of Diet Coke. And I remember just when you're out and you just automatically, someone asks you what you want, because that's what I've always said for like the last 30 years of my life. I was like, I'll have a Diet Coke. And then the Diet Coke came and I was like, this is unbelievably sweet and synthetic. And yet, if you'd asked my children a year or so before that, they would say that literally was my fuel. That was all they ever saw me drink. I should say
Well,
that.
you're in good company,
Yeah.
Rebecca. That was also my advice before my nutrition days. It was Diet Coke and M&Ms. I'd power on through a work day on that diet.
Yeah, all of the key nutrients. Were they peanut M&Ms?
Don't do it anymore. Don't do it anymore. Just to
I've got one thing in here that's really interesting. Again, someone in the chat here just referring to the consultations that we offer all of you. So when you come in to deal with our health concierge service, which is free, we can escalate up, or if you're on a subscription, you automatically get access to Charlotte or Dr. Martens. And this community member just saying how useful it was to have tests done independently and then work with someone who really knows how to read them, which obviously Dr. Martens and Charlotte are really well versed in doing, because normal doesn't always mean normal. And there's lots of things that we can do to help and support if we're concerned that something feels a bit low, or similarly something feels a bit high. So just talking to including other foods that can be rich in the vitamins and minerals we're missing, I think that's something again that we aim to offer everyone in our community, because that's back to that concept of layering up. So again, if people are feeling a little bit unbalanced, please do get in contact with us after tonight and book time with our health concierge team as a first step. I'm so glad that our inaugural session has been so full of questions, Charlotte. I hope your brain feels suitably exhausted.
I do. I feel like I've been tested.
You have. I think she's passed team, hasn't she? I'm just looking into the chat. You could all say yes, or we could fail her. She's very resilient.
Well, if you don't see me next time, you know what happened.
There's some claps coming. I can see some. Yes, exactly.
I just want to say one more thing, because it just popped into my mind that the women that I work in my own practice, they start off, I put them a plan together and think, I've got to start having breakfast. I've got to start putting stuff together. And then I say, look, and I want you to try this amazing supplement called MPOWDER. And they say, but it's a powder. What am I going to do? How am I going to have it? And they don't want to mix it in water. They don't want to mix it in milk. But actually, by the time they come back to see me, they've suddenly completely changed their mornings, their routines, because they realised that they can mix the powder into different things. So whether it's a chia pudding or an overnight oats or a smoothie or something, and they've gone from either skipping breakfast or having toast or grabbing a croissant and a coffee on the way to work, to actually thinking, I need to take my MPOWDER because I've been told to take it every day, and the best way to do that is just get it in the morning.
That's really interesting. So that's changing it, a habit shift. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined tonight. You've got lots of claps and hearts, so I think that means you passed. And Noelle says you passed, so I'm deferring to Noelle. If you do want to have one-on-ones, please know that's free to everyone in our community, regardless of whether you're on our blends or not. And the final thing that I would just like to say is a huge thank you to Charlotte for being here. And if you've been here tonight and really enjoyed it, please do invite your friends. And we're going to continue doing these. So I think we're in a moment of time where we just need to cut through the swirliness. But please do come back and join us again. Put questions to us in advance and we'll make sure we make this really useful for you. Have a wonderful rest of the day to all of you, wherever you are. And Charlotte, thank you so much for bringing your brains to the session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.